AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, of course, and President Trump in Detroit visiting a Ford facility on the production floor with Ford Chairman Bill Ford. And this was part of their discussion about how things are going for Ford and the auto industry.
But so this plant, you might talk about it. This plant goes 24 hours around the clock. Before it used to go 3 hours around the clock.
No, it will. So we're adding a third shift, and it's going to be running, as the president said, 24 hours, 6 days a week. And that just shows the demand there is for this product, which is the best-selling product, as you all know, in America. And it just gets hotter and hotter. So we have a great relationship with the president and his whole staff. They've been great to work with for us. He personally is incredibly responsive every time we need something or call. We very much appreciate it, and we couldn't be more excited. We're adding market share. We're growing as a company. We're adding jobs, not just here but elsewhere. Times are good for us.
And all of the U.S. automakers.
It was all smiles, including Trump talking to CBS's Tony Dokoupil about jobs in the auto industry, including filling those 5,000 jobs for mechanics that need to be filled.
But they've got one not far from here. They just idled the electric vehicle plant.
Well, yeah, but it's going to gasoline vehicles.
Yeah, it's going to go to gasoline.
Well, but why don't you say that, Tony? You can't say.
You didn't give me a chance. I'm coming there. I'm coming around.
I agree. I said I want electric and I want gasoline and I want hybrids. I want everything. But you were going to be forced under the mandate to buy an electric car in a very short period of time. I didn't want that, and I ended that. Now people can have electric, they can have gasoline, they can have hybrid.
But are they going to have people to build these cars? The CEO of Ford said not long ago he's got 5,000 open mechanic jobs. He can't find people willing and able to build them.
That's a good thing, Tony. That means it's vibrant. You could also have things where you have so many people and they can't get jobs. It's true. We are doing so well, it's hard. Now, what's going to happen is people are being trained rapidly, and you're going to have a thing called robots. And robots are going to be a big factor. I predict that robots are going to be a big factor in the future, and it's going to help out. But
I think that's a pretty safe prediction, as the robots are working behind him, at least in part. It was all smiles about the auto industry and how things are going in terms of growth in our economy, except as it pertained to Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, who was characterized when Trump spoke to business leaders in Detroit thusly.
In the Fed, we have a real stiff in the Fed, but that's for another day. But they raise rates. So everyone says, oh, they announced great numbers. It's great, great, great. And the market goes down because they immediately raise rates. No. When the market goes up, they should lower rates. You want to see 20% and 25%? You want to see what we can do? We've got to go back to an old standard. When there's good news, the market should go up, not go down. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's the way it used to be for most of the time. That's the way you make a country great. But our growth potential is unlimited and could be much higher if we went back to sanity. We're not doing it anymore. We're talking about the head of the Fed, and I want somebody that when the market is doing great, interest rates can go down because our country becomes stronger. See, you view it differently. Our country becomes stronger, and therefore interest rates should go down, not up.
All right. So for more on all this, please be joined by Economist Stephen Moore, author of The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity. Again, Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. Good to be with you. Thank you very much.
So your review of Trump's comments on the auto industry, the larger strength of the economy, and his running feud with the Fed.
There's a lot there. First, let me say something about Trump's visit to that Ford plant. You know, when as you know, Dan, I grew up in Chicago, and I remember back in the early 70s, my parents, we loaded up in the station wagon. We drove to Detroit. We went to the Kellogg's plant and the steel plants and the Ford plant, and I remember going to the old steel plants and that Ford plant and thinking, oh, my God, those were like sweatshops. It was, people, these big bulky guys carrying steel beams, and they weren't the glitzy jobs that we romanticize about. And anyway,
yeah, you're like, I need to get an office job. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want one of those cushy jobs like being a radio talk show host.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But anyway, my point is that you look at that. I was just amazed looking at that factory, and I was like, boy, this is totally different from what a factory looked like 40 years ago. And it's a real tribute to productivity and to technology. So pretty soon we won't have anybody working at auto plants. It'll all be done by computers and robots. But look, the American economy is absolutely booming right now. This is a full scale boom right now. We're seeing huge increases in GDP. The number came out, the first estimate, 5.3% for the fourth quarter, and that's with the government shutdown. So if we hadn't had the government shutdown, we would have been closer to 6%, which is off the charts. We're seeing nice gains in employment. We're seeing nice reductions in inflation. The budget deficit is going down. I mean, everything is headed in the right direction right now, which is weird because if you look at the public opinion polls, people are kind of a little bit sour on the economy, although the numbers are getting better in the last few weeks. So this is a really strong economy. And Trump is right that jobs, when people are working, that doesn't cause inflation. Growth does not cause inflation. Increasing in the supply of something reduces prices. It doesn't increase them. So Trump is right that the Fed, and it's not just Jerome Powell, this has been the Fed for 40 years, they believe in this old, what we call as economist Phillips curve idea that, more people working, more growth causes more inflation, which is completely upside down. So I don't like this idea. I think Trump really stepped in it a little bit, his White House, when they said they were going to prosecute Jerome Powell. I do think Jerome Powell is one of the most incompetent Fed chairmen we've ever had. I think he's a bad guy, political Fed chairman we've ever had, but he's not a criminal. And I think that was a overstep by the Trump administration.
Yeah, and the problem, of course, is, and the Wall Street Journal opined on this too, including with handy-dandy charts, which is you still have this affordability issue because while inflation isn't rising, it's also not coming down, and wages aren't keeping up, and so at the macro level, you look at this, and there's a lot of people that you can say 5% GDP growth, but in terms of what they're feeling in terms of, with respect to daily living and those necessities of daily living, they feel like they're running in place or falling a little bit behind still.
Yeah. Okay. But you are wrong, my friend. That's wrong. Actually,
Okay.
we have the data. We have the data. We have access to this data before anyone else, and I can't explain how. But we just looked at the numbers for the last year. The average, household income, median, people in the exact center of the income spectrum, their income above inflation after taking into account the rising costs of food and energy and things like that, is up $2,500. It's a huge increase, one of the biggest increases ever. So what I'm telling you is there is a divide right now between perception and reality. There's more affordability. The middle class has never had more purchasing power than they have today, and so.
So I mean, I just want to read from the Journal, and so you're telling me this is wrong. This is from the Journal editorial board.
Yeah.
The reason that people are not feeling better, they say, the reason is a bump in inflation in the summer months that erased the gains from wage increases. The earnings jump in March and May has given way to flat or negative growth in earnings. Monthly data for October and November aren't available because of the government shutdown, but average hourly earnings through December rose only 1.1% over the previous 12 years. And, of course, inflation has run hotter than that.
Yeah, no, that's wrong. In
Okay.
fact, in fact, I'm going to have to call my friends over there because I work there, but they're behind on this. So the wage gains in September, October, November were huge. And so anyway, I mean, look, we don't have to argue about that. I'll show you the data the next time I get together.
Fine. I mean, I'm glad we get clarity. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm not. Yeah.
But my point is simply this: that it is a very strong economy. It's going well. I hate some of the ideas. I just wrote a column on this that. You got a booming economy, Mr. President. Just stop with the because there's too many bad ideas now coming out of the White House, Dan. I think you'd agree with me. The idea of putting, credit card caps on interest rates, all that's going to do is mean lower income people aren't going to have access to credit cards. How about this stupid idea of $200 billion more lending by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Have they forgotten about what happened in 2008? Freddie and Fannie caused the crisis. This idea that institutional investors can't buy housing. These are just bad ideas, and it pains me because all the president has to do right now is nothing. Just stay out of the way. And that's because Trump did so many amazing things in the first year. We did 100 deregulations for every new regulation. We did the big, beautiful tax bill. We're producing more energy than ever before. Look, I'm just super optimistic about this year if Washington would just stop.
Well, so I'd be interested just to hear, I mean, what feedback you get from Trump or Trump's inner circle, Kevin Hassett and those people, you and Kudlow. I assume Kudlow and Laffer agree with you. I certainly do. I assume what kind of feedback do you get when you say, Mr. President, don't just do something, stand there? What does he say?
Exactly, yeah.
What does he say?
In fact, what does who say?
The president. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, he's like a constant motion machine, and look, I love the guy, but he's trying to, and I admire that about him. I mean, and he goes literally 18 hours a day, et cetera, but sometimes, you just have to stop and let the policies sink in. I think we're at the beginning of a Reagan-style boom like we had in the mid-1980s, where you had literally 6% economic growth. Now, Larry and Arthur are saying we could get 6% growth. I don't think that's feasible. But I think we can get 3.5% to 4% growth, and that's really strong, and it helps. It is true, as John F. Kennedy said, that a rising tide lifts all boats, and it's not just the rich who are going to do better off. Hopefully it will be the middle class and lower income people. But this idea of taking away people, of putting credit card caps on, what will happen, Dan, and you probably talked about this, is that people with low credit scores will lose their credit cards.
It's like a minimum wage. It's like a minimum wage increase. You hurt the people you think you're helping.
Exactly. And by the way, you know who's going to be the big beneficiary of that? The loan sharks. Because if people can't get a credit card, then they're going to have to go to Guido down the street. And
payday loans and things like that.
If
right.
you don't pay, if you don't pay your credit card expense on time, you're going to get hit with a 15% penalty. If you don't pay Guido back on time, he's going to break your legs.
Well, yeah. Or but I mean, seriously, or you have to go to a payday loan and you're charged 30%.
By the way, Elizabeth Warren, who's one of the people who talked, believe it or not, this is like a Twilight Zone episode. You know who talked Trump into this idea of interest rate cap? Elizabeth Warren. And so Elizabeth Warren is the same person who wants to get rid of payday loans. What are low-income people going to do? Where are they going to get credit? They can't get it from the credit card companies. They can't get it from the payday lenders. So they're going to have to go to loan sharks.
Well, or they can open a daycare center in Minneapolis. They can always do that.
That's exactly right. I don't know if you've seen the meme from the Breaking Bad. Did you watch Breaking Bad?
I sure did.
Oh, well, there's a very famous scene where they walk in the garage and he has like carts and carts and carts full of $100 bills, and she says, "And where'd you get all that money?" And then the meme says, "Oh, I opened a daycare center in Minnesota."
Okay. I mean, I wasn't expecting a Breaking Bad reference from Steve Moore. This is going to be fun. That's a high point to end on. Steve Moore.
There you go.
Economist Steve Moore, thank you as always for your insights. And, correcting the Journal today. We're really breaking news.
I'm going to have to give those guys a call and tell them they're wrong. All right.
Let's get on it. All right. See you, Steve. Thanks for joining us. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Did you know most remodeling mishaps start before construction even begins? Here's something else you should know. At Forever Remodeling, we do things differently. Every kitchen, bathroom, and basement project starts with smart planning.